Hello and welcome to the What They Believe series. Today my guest is Rabbi Laura Rappaport of Temple Beth Ora of Coral Springs, Florida. Thank you for joining us, Rabbi.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
In the Jewish Bible, the Old Testament, there are references to other gods in Scripture like Baal or Asherah. In fact, the name Mordecai means servant of Marduk and not servant of God. How do you interpret these references?
One of the major themes you see in the Torah is there's all these other different cultures that have their own gods, but they are not your gods. Adonai or Elohim, I'm your God. So it's really important that you know who your God is and you stay loyal to Adonai and don't mess around with these other people's gods, which sometimes they do, and consequences ensue.
Okay, it's weird coming from someone like me, but were those other gods real? Meaning, were the ancient Jews at the time, did they recognize those gods as actual gods, just not their God? Or did they think they were worshiping things that did not exist?
You have to remember the Torah is pre-Judaism. There's nothing about Judaism in Torah. The Torah describes an early Israelite people in formation. And the Torah is very important to us because it is the foundational building block upon which, as the centuries go on, Judaism is built upon. So it's a very important building block. But it's the ancient world. So the best that I can tell in Torah is that it was assumed. Well, and this is also what makes it complicated, because the Torah, even though it describes most of it describes a story that took place in a specific time period, it is very, very clear from just a surface reading of it. You don't even have to go into all the scholarship that backs this up. It's very clear that these are different oral traditions from different subgroups of the Israelite people that at some point in time were woven together. So there are so many question marks about when each story comes from and each character, and there's a lot of this. You just have to know you're dealing with material that scholars argue vociferously about, and people will never agree on where it all comes from. Okay, I got a little off on an aside, but the Torah, the ancient world, clearly had an idea that each people, or even each geographical area, depending on what story you're looking at, had a god that was the god almost to like a border. And you see this later after the Torah. You see this in one of the books in Nevi'im, in the next section of the Bible. And you see some of the kings saying, okay, well, if you go into their area, you have to worship that God, but not if you're out in this area. So these are just, again, these are not Jewish ideas. They're ideas from the ancient world, and Judaism comes out of building upon them. So did people think the other gods were real? I'm sure it depended on the person you talk to.
In a recent episode, I spoke with an Orthodox rabbi who said that he worships the same as the rabbis of 2,000 years ago. I was skeptical. Do you have any comment on this?
If you're talking about biblically, because sometimes there are people in the Orthodox or the ultra-Orthodox world that feel they are doing things the same as the Bible. That's clearly not true. That's very obviously not true. You have to do just a quick cursory read of a few chapters. That's clearly not true. Passover, as we think of it now, is a radical reworking of an ancient festival where people came to the temple and they brought sacrifices and they ate certain foods together. the rabbis made it into this home-based ceremony where instead of bringing sacrifices, you talk and discuss. So for example, there's a bunch of big parts, important parts of the Seder, but one important part of the Seder is when everyone looks at the Seder plate where you have the symbols, and it says very clearly in the Gada, okay, Rabbi Gamliel says, if you point to and discuss or mention each of these symbols, it is as if you fulfilled your requirement. That is a radical shift, because what it was before that was you had to bring those things to the temple. Well, now they're like, well, all right, we can't do that. So what are we going to replace it with? How about talking and discussing? And by the way, there is some evidence that replacing with talking and discussing is drawn from the Greco-Roman world. That was borrowed because that at the time was where the early rabbis were, and that was one way that in the Greco-Roman world they connected.
I'm curious about the animal sacrifice, the burnt offering or Shoah. Did that stop after the Second Temple period?
70 CE, everything came to a stop. That was it. That was it for the priesthood, the temple, Jerusalem as the real population center of the Jewish world. I mean, the Romans came in and did away with, so that was all gone. The first Torah character that is considered to be, or Torah figure who's considered to be, a monotheist and kind of starting this ancient Israelite people who look to Adonai as their God would be Abraham, who of course is way later. But to say the word Jewish is very premature. I mean, he was, according to the Torah account, he was a monotheist, and he began this family heritage of loyalty to Adonai.
So Abraham's mother was not Jewish.
Abraham wasn't Jewish. There's no Jews in the Torah. Watch my video. I have a video on this on my channel.
The food rules as to what's kosher and what's not. First, as far as I know, there are no plants that are off limits.
That is correct.
Well, several types of meat are forbidden.
But the whole thing of kosher is not really like the individual things you can or can't eat. I mean, it's more useful to look at it as a whole, like what's even the deal with keeping kosher, and why would someone do that? And there is absolutely not agreement, traditionally, there is definitely not agreement on this. And whether or not you choose to limit your eating, I guess depends on what you think the primary purpose of it is. Some of the major, maybe you'd say, benefits that come from having some dietary rules. If you have a group of people that has certain rules around what they can and can't eat, what's going to keep the community together better than that? I mean, that's how people come together. They come together to eat. Another is just what you said, that plants are, if you are vegetarian, as you noted, well, this doesn't apply to you. No, it doesn't. Because the reality is, it is not ideal to kill things for food. We see in the very beginning of the Torah, whether or not you look at Torah as something that is mythology or it doesn't matter. I mean, the stories from the beginning of the Torah have a lesson or a value that we should really be living peacefully with all other things on earth and not eating them. What happened over time is Judaism is very pragmatic, and you even see this in the Torah. It's a very pragmatic system. People want to eat meat. So sort of what goes into kashrut is, okay, this is not ideal, but if you're going to kill things to eat them, there's going to be a lot of rules around that. You have to be very, very conscious of the fact that what you are putting into your mouth was once alive and it was killed for you to eat it.
So, what are your personal feelings on Christmas? For 6 to 10 weeks before Christmas, our entire culture just becomes Christmas land. You know, there's Christmas music in the stores, there are decorations everywhere, the specials still come on television, I assume.
Right.
So, yes, you're not a part of it, but you are surrounded by it.
Yeah. First of all, don't take away my Rudolph. That is the best show ever. You can probably tell what year I was born by that statement. I am a 60s child. Rudolph is the best.
Yes.
Charlie Brown Christmas special is cute, but nothing's Rudolph. I don't have a hard and fast rule about it. I mean, if you grow up in this country, that's what it is in December. And music, a lot of the music is very pretty. And certainly all the lights and everything, and the decorations are very pretty. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the consumerism that a lot of people complain about, you can feel a little bit good that it's like, well, at least that's not my religion that's being so incredibly overly consumer oriented and purchase oriented during this season. If the people around me have an understanding that, oh, this is great and we're having a great time, and we also recognize that not everybody is Christian, then I'm okay with it. So people are much better now. If I go into a store, I am much less likely to be asked like, oh, so are you all ready for Christmas? What are you doing for Christmas? Which is, I guess for most people, that's probably fine. It's a little insensitive and it's awkward. Most people are just like, have a great holiday. Hope you have good holidays. I appreciate that greatly because it's like, I'm fine with seeing all the decorations everywhere, as long as you just recognize, yes, most of us are Christian or somehow Christian adjacent, but we also know other people are Americans, other people live in this country. Not everybody is celebrating this Christian holiday, and so I want to be respectful of you as well.
I'd like to thank Rabbi Rappaport for speaking with me here today, and I shall do so now. Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you so much. It was fun and it was a pleasure. I don't know, Jews supposedly control the weather. Jews supposedly have space lasers. I mean, there's all kinds of things we do.
If Jews controlled the weather, it would never be cold.
That's very true. That's true for me anyway.